Good evening, all my little buns. Daisy here with you tonight, feeling still a little ballerina-ish from a video you may or may not have seen a bit ago. At this rate, I tend to do the full suit videos, and there's less of them, so they'll show up before this does. So if you go back, you can probably watch me in a little ballerina outfit like this, and prancing about in my living room. But for now, it's time for Game Thoughts. I'm going to do two for you tonight, because there was a little controversy when they came out. It's the first one because of what it wasn't, and then they made the second one, so do both. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. So we'll start with the first one. Good old TMNT Tag Game. This came out on the Nintendo. Obviously, these are Nintendo cartridges I have here. Back whenever Ninja Turtles was still pretty new. So this was a long time ago. And from what I can tell, it is very much based on both the TV show and the comic book series, because there's a lot of violence in this, as opposed to just being comical, knocking over robots kind of stuff like the cartoon was. The game was not what people were expecting, because I don't remember which actually came out first, this or the arcade game in the arcade, but people had been playing that, went and bought this, and were confused. Notably so, because they were completely different games. This one even was released on a lot of other media from what I recall, including some of the European computer systems. I know the one that was referred to as the ZX Spectrum. It's a Z for all you non-Britishy people. Or I think Canada uses the word Z as well. Anyway, everyone just calls it the ZX Spectrum, so we'll deal with that. In fact, it had a jump that you actually could not make in a sewer level. They misprogrammed it. There was absolutely no way to make it across one section, so the game is kind of unbeatable for that accidental oopsie. Go figure. This game, in general, was notorious for jumps that were really complicated, that made the game harder, including the infamous, the little one space at the top of a floor that you literally can just walk across. Because that was there for a reason. But in general, this game was kind of interesting. It had a concept of you actually had all four turtles. They were yours to use as you so choose. And each had different lengths of weapon, different damage, different speed. So obviously you saved your Donatello for special occurrences and bosses because he hit hard and far. But most of the time you'd probably be doing your level stuff with your Raphaels, your Michelangelos, and your Leonardos, usually in that order, because you didn't want to waste something useful before you had to. Now, it had mostly side-scrolling adventure stuff in the main part of the game, and outside of the side-scrolling levels, you actually were on a map screen, as it were, which was kind of new for games like this, especially in the NES era. You didn't normally have a map screen that was interactive even, but you would walk around between buildings and sewer grate entrances and whatnot to get to the next section. And there were bad guys out there that you could run into, that you could get killed by. Especially these steamroller things for some reason. The Foot Clan apparently invested in steamrollers. I don't know why. This is a video game. So you'd go between buildings to get to different sewer openings or different buildings to do levels to get things you need to keep going or to get through. Eventually, you got to the point where you have the turtle van, which then you could shoot back at those steamrollers. They didn't just immediately kill you. And you got rockets to blast from the turtle van to go through barriers to get to other areas you couldn't get to elsewise. You got special weapons, which instead of your regular attack, they would be like throwing stars or boomerangs or something like that. So cool bonus equipment. But they were consumables, so you definitely want to save them. Spoiler alert, save the scrolls. Those are really important towards the end of the game. Whatever turtle you're going to have in reserve, get them to hold the scrolls. That'd be a good Leonardo thing, because he usually was third used turtle in basic stuff for me. And there were several level sections. So you started with a basic street section, a bigger street section. There was the infamous uh, dam level, which you're swimming through defusing bombs, and a time limit. And everything in the world hurts you as you do this. So you have a good chance you're going to lose one turtle during that section. But you have a chance to get them back. There's at least once, if not twice, in the game that you go down a certain section and you'll get a captured turtle back. So one of your guys gets lost in a level, you have a chance to get him back later on. So you may lose one, but there's a good chance you can revive him later. Now, all damage kind of stays with you at any given time. So if you get hurt in level 1, 2, 3, this building, that building, you're still hurt. In fact, when you're out on the walking around between open levels, you're vulnerable. And I say the steamroller gets you, that turtle's dead now. If you're in the turtle van and it gets hit, that turtle that's your current selected one gets hit. So health is there always. There's a lot of pizza, though, throughout the game that'll fill your health up, and make sure you switch to somebody that's hurt when you're about to pick up a pizza because you don't want to waste that. That's important. That's critical. And it does not respawn, no matter how many of the bad guys respawn. Pizzas does not. Uh, and there's also an airfield level. I think it's an airfield. I can't remember what it's supposed to be, but after you've gotten through most of the city levels, you end up in this airfield kind of place with more bad guys. And I think that after that was a night level and even worse bad guys. And the bad guys are interesting. Rarely do you see anything that you would think of when you're thinking of Ninja Turtles. The mouse robots, I think, is the most close iconic. There are foot soldiers, but you almost have to use a lot of imagination to figure that out. You know, figure out the turtles are turtles, but the foot soldiers are just kind of purple dudes. Um, but there's a lot of robots and guys that are made of fire and stuff like that. And guys with a chainsaw for some reason. Uh, once, but they're fun enough. You don't feel like the game is just being boring. There's a lot going on. Flying bats and things. And all kinds of weird bad guys to kill. And you're going through stuff like rescuing April and Neil and going after the Technodrome is the final part there. And you actually attack the Technodrome as a turtle. It's not to scale, I would say, because it fits on the TV screen and you have not shrunk at all. And foot soldiers keep popping out of it until you kill that part. Um, Definitely think the game was fun. Fair most of the time. If you're playing on something with save states, it's a lot easier because played on a Retron 5 or something where you can do a save state randomly. Makes it heckers lots easy to not lose all your turtles and actually make it to the end of the game and take out the Shred Man. So, good point to that. Uh, Overall, the game is fun. Control is good enough. Uh, Jumps can be a little tricky because there's like a tiny jump, a big jump, and a super duper 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 jump. And sometimes and there's like a range. It's like small, then medium, then large, and it's hard to sometimes judge to get into a space that is just high enough to stand in, but it's hard to make a jump that will do the right amount of jump to get into it, to say get a piece of pizza. I sat and tried to jump for a certain piece of pizza quite a few times before I got to it because it was there. You couldn't fall anywhere, but it was a pain to get to where it was. Like, ugh, but I need that pizza. My turtle needs fix. Fix my turtle. Um, but overall, I'd recommend it if you get a chance. It's fun. It's very interesting. It's not a super easy game, but it's not a super deadly hard game. And it's got me a lot of enjoyment. I'm glad I picked up a copy. I'd rented it and borrowed it a few times as a kid, but I actually purchased a copy later in life here, back when I started buying Nintendo stuff again. I'm not a super collector, mind you. I'm not going to go for full set or anything. I'm just going for stuff I remembered and liked. And that was definitely on my list. That's why it's there. Now, whenever people got that, the game they thought they were getting was this one. I held it the wrong way. This one, which was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, which was a more or less good remake of the arcade game. The graphics were a little bit lower because they're Nintendo. Compared to at the time, the arcade cabs were more advanced and higher quality. Um, but this was around the time there was the turning where the arcade was barely better than the home versions. I've noticed this in a couple games, like UN Squadron. The graphics were just a tiny bit better on the arcade version than the SNES port, um, but only a tiny bit better. And the SNES port had so much more going on, so something to keep in mind. Um, but in this case, your turtles were a little less graphic. And I don't mean like violence. I just mean they were a little more dumbed down tech wise, and they played fine. I mean, if you don't want to be shoving quarters in a machine all day to play this game, you could definitely purchase this and have it at home and play it for hours on end. Um, the gameplay is amazing. They added a lot of bad guys for the home version. You can play with up to 2 players. I'm pretty sure it was at the same time. If I remember right, yeah, you can play 2 guys on the screen at once. I think in the arcade cabs, you could have cabs that did up to 4 players at once, kind of like the X-Men Super 6 player thing, but only with, well, 4 turtles. So it was kind of nice to be able to just like go in and bash with a full set of 4 turtles against the Foot Clan and stuff. Just keep feeding quarters and get you more lives. Is you couldn't quite do that. You can do twos though, which was nice. Um, the basic bad guys were all pretty easy. Everything was actually really representative of stuff you would expect in Turtles. Foot soldiers looked like foot soldiers, more or less. They had like this little robot that was in one of the first few episodes. He shows up, just like in the arcade variant. Rocksteady, Bebop, Baxter Stockman, uh, Krang, Shredder, Rock Soldiers, all sorts of stuff that you should have expected would be in a Turtle game. They were here. Lots of There's a lot of dopey guys too, but mostly you end up with foot soldiers. So you at least feel like you're playing with something, not playing against a guy with a chainsaw or guy who's just on fire, or just random bats constantly. Like, more bats. Why'd it have to be bats? Um, there's actually more levels on the NES port than there was in the arcade cabinet. They actually had, I think it was 2 full levels to the game. So there's more game to play right here. So that's a good thing. Uh, and it definitely has a lot of fun to it. You can easily forget that it doesn't have the slightly better graphics that the arcade version did have, uh, by the fact that you're really getting to enjoy the game and be comfortable in your couch and be doing this with your basic NES controller and being a turtle, being a turtle. All the turtles have a little bit different attack. Um, I think this is the one where they added a special super attack, but it did cost you life. I don't remember if that was in this one or in Turtles in Time where they added that, but I remember that was in one of these games. I don't own a copy of it, but Turtles in Time was also really good too. That was on the SNES. That was this sequel to this one, and when I say this was pretty close to the arcade port, except for little graphics, the SNES one, the Turtles in Time, it's hard to say which one is actually better graphics wise in this case because they really did it justice on the home port. The SNES was starting to hold out to what was currently in arcades at the time. And this is actually about when the turmoil of, well, you want to go to the arcade or you want to play the home version. Well, I'll pay $50 and I own the home version, or I'll put $50 quarters for the almost equivalent version at the arcade. Well, I can pay $50 and I own this one, and I can sell it to someone else, make some of that 50 back after I got bored of it, or trade it with my friends. There was a lot of Nintendo game trading back when I was young, so that's a thing too. Um, and people like me that didn't live near any kind of arcades, it was really good to be able to buy these things or rent them at the video rental store down the street. It was like the only way we're going to get to play these kind of games. uh, but really, uh, the graphics on this one were definitely far better than the other Turtles game. The turtles were definitely more turtle shaped. The bad guys were bad guy shaped. It was kind of Streets of Rage style, beat 'em up uh, graphics and style. You had a range from the front of the screen to the back of the screen where your guys were standing. Um, it got a little confusing sometimes with things that were hovering where they were, but they usually had a shadow underneath them, so you knew you can aim your shadows together to make sure you were making a hit. But it did add a little bit of an extra depth, so it was kind of a three-dimensional environment while not having to be three-dimensional, and gave you more space to play around in. Sometimes the things moved side to side, left or right. Sometimes they went down the screen. You'd be like going towards the front of the screen to advance the map. So it had a lot of interestingness to it, and I could definitely recommend this one. It was fun and still is fun. That and the sequel, Turtles in Time, for the SNES. Really great games. I'd like to find a copy of that one for not too much if I can. If so, I'm sure I played the patoots out of it too. uh, and at the time they made that one, they also made one for the Genesis, Hyperstone Heist. Totally different game, mostly totally different. They were some similar levels, but it was, again, same style of game, about the same graphics as the Turtles in Time, just on the Genesis, and different levels and different story. I've heard conflicting ideas of which one was better. I think Turtles in Time wins on the which one was better of the two. I don't own either, so I don't want to give you a good judgment on that. Either way, I recommend all of those kinds of games if you're into beat 'em ups and turtles, because they definitely fill some bills of fun. And if you really want to play in an arcade cabinet, I know the one-up cabinet had Turtles uh, 2 there, and, well, the arcade game. It's just called the arcade game there. And Turtles in Time is the other game that was on it. So if you really want that arcade cab action, definitely recommend that and Little Standy. So it's valid height. Uh, I played it in a Walmart even. I was like, yep, that's the arcade version, all right. That's really good. That was enjoyable. And they aren't that expensive. I think it was only a couple $100 for the whole setup, and then you have a mini arcade cab in your house, so you have space to stick it somewhere. uh, well, that's a lot of turtles for you today. I hope you enjoyed all that pizzalicious fun and several games I'd recommend out of that. So in the end, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Daisy here loves when you like, comment, subscribe. Ring the little dingly bell. You know I love when you ring that little dingly bell because that means it gets alerts to you whenever I put up a video. And then you'll get to see it as soon as you can, whenever you get to a safe location or wish to sit down and watch. And appreciate any likes, comments, and shares. Anytime you share this off with a friend, it does make me happy because then more people see it, and then YouTube will think more people want to see it, and then it'll share with other people whenever they get to their show next video portion. And that's a good thing. And it'll show up in people's recommendations too. And wouldn't you just love that? If people just got recommended to watch me, well, it'll make me happy. Anyway, and also the Patreon link is in the description if you're so inclined. I don't require anything, but if you do, I certainly appreciate it, especially I appreciate all my $1 Patreons, and I appreciate my single $5 Patreon uh, extra so much because, well, they do help make this show happen and helps it so that I'll get nice things that make the channel better. And, well, for now, Daisy wants you to all have a fluffy pink rest of your day because, bunnies like having other bunnies be happy. And I will see you again probably real soon because, well, out of all my suits, I do like being Daisy a lot. Mwah.